Hi, my name is Sylvia Schwaag Serger. I'm Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Lund University. Deputy Vice-Chancellor at our university means that I'm second in command at the University of Lund. I'm speaking to you today, and we've organized this webinar because we know that a lot of the international students have many questions regarding the current coronavirus epidemic. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide you with a little bit of information of what the university is currently doing, but also to answer some of the questions you have raised in various fora. So we've received some questions which I will go through, and we will also open up for questions from you online. Originally, we planned to do this webinar primarily aimed at the current international students at Lund University, and we know that many of you still are on our campus, which we were very happy about. But we've also received a number of questions and interest from incoming students who are planning to attend Lund University in the fall. So this webinar will also try to address some of their questions. With me by my side, I have Richard Stenelo, who is International Director at Lund University. And he will help me field some of your questions, and also he is the one coordinating all of our activities regarding international student mobility at Lund University. So what I will do first is just go very quickly through some of the measures we have taken at Lund University as a result of the ongoing epidemic. So very briefly, at the end of February 2020, Lund University formed a crisis management group, which continuously monitors the current situation regarding COVID-19. This management group meets every day to manage all overall issues connected with the virus outbreak. And the university is also in consultation with national authorities on a continual basis, health authorities, regional authorities, but also various ministries to explain our challenges, but also to follow the recommendations and advice that we receive regarding measures we should be taking on our campus. So far, we have taken a number of measures. Perhaps the most important measure, or the most visible one for the current students at Lund University, is that teaching and assessment of students' performance until further notice are conducted remotely unless there are special circumstances in place. So that means we have transitioned to distance learning for the moment. The second point is that we have adjusted and modified certain course and program syllabi to respond to these changing needs of distance learning. You will find information about these changes, I think, on your by communicating with your program coordinator or on the respective websites. And the overall purpose of these changes has been to ensure that we can provide distance learning while maintaining the highest possible quality of the teaching. Furthermore, what we have done is we have canceled all exchange programs, so all incoming and outgoing mobility of students in exchange programs that have not started yet have been canceled up until June 30th. We are very happy, I should say, that we still have a large number of foreign students and international exchange students on our campus, and these are from programs and initiatives that started earlier. But any exchange programs that have not started yet have been canceled up until June 30th. We have also decided not to authorize work travel, international work travel. This applies to travel within the framework of education, and this also follows the recommendations from the Swedish Foreign Ministry, and we are aiming to keep this restriction in place as long as the Foreign Ministry advises against non-essential travel, non-essential international travel. And finally, all international visits are currently canceled until further notice. What we have also done is that we have now switched into a modus where, to the extent possible, all meetings and conferences and other gatherings are to be conducted remotely using digital tools. In those cases where we do conduct physical meetings, which can be the case in certain circumstances, We are following the rules and recommendations of the Swedish Public Health Authority, and those instruct us to reduce the spread of infection by, for example, observing social distancing, by ensuring that meetings, conferences, or gatherings are never to be organized with more than 50 participants, etc. Finally, staff that can work from home is encouraged to do so as long as they have cleared this with their manager or with the person they report to. And the same goes for all other activities that normally take place on campus that we have advised our staff to conduct as much activity remotely or digitally as possible. This was our presentation. We will now go into some of the questions that have been raised by current students. Before I do that, I would also just like to mention that I am very aware that many students who are currently, many international students who are currently at Lund, but also many students who are planning on coming to Lund in the fall, have a number of questions and concerns with regard to the current situation. And that is fully understandable. In fact, I myself have studied in 6 different countries, and I know very well what it is like to be far away from home in times of crisis, but also to want to study abroad, but to be wondering whether it is wise and safe to do so at this moment. So this is, again, one of the purposes of this webinar. And my final point also before going into the questions is that we are very happy that we have received a record number of applications from international students who want to study in Lund in the fall. And we have just this week admitted 5,000 students to study at Lund University in the fall. And we know that there is a very large interest from the international student community to attend Lund University in the fall, which we are very happy about. And just to repeat that you, the international student community, are extremely important for the profile of this university and for our ambition to be a truly international university. So this is also one of the reasons we're happy to answer your questions now, but also in the future. And we will give you information on how to do that. And please, if you have questions, look on our website, follow our website, where there are both many questions that you will find answered. And if not, you can always raise questions with our international office.
So why hasn't Lund University closed down to prevent the spread of the coronavirus?
In all our decisions, we are carefully trying to adopt a science and evidence-based approach, and therefore we are carefully following the recommendations of the Swedish health authorities in all of our decisions. And this is based on the fact that we in Sweden have a significant amount of trust in our public authorities. And so currently, following those recommendations, we have not deemed it necessary or desirable to close down the university.
Why hasn't Lund University decided to close down nations and student unions?
At Lund University, as in Sweden in general, student influence is something we are very proud of and with which we strongly welcome and view as a requirement for a functioning and a healthy and an excellent university. As a result, and this is also one of the things that maybe people from other countries are not always aware of, our student unions, our nations, are completely independent. So we do not control at the university the nations and student unions. They are run by the students and for the students. And so simply speaking, we cannot, and we would never, unless something unforeseen happens, we cannot dictate what they do. So therefore, it's their decision to keep the student unions, to close down the student unions and nations. And they are, it is their decision to do that. Is there something you would like to add there, Richard?
No, I think just like you said, it's up to each student nation or to decide themselves what kind of activities they continue with. And again, like you emphasized, this is something we're very proud of at the university, that our student organizations, they take their own decisions.
Exactly. Thank you.
So to minimize this beat of the coronavirus, it's going to be a spread of the coronavirus, apologies for that. Will Lund University recommend students to wear a face mask in crowded areas? Does the university see face masks as a symbol of sickness or prevention of disease?
Again, so far, and this is what we intend to do also in the future, we are following the recommendations of the Swedish health authorities. To repeat what the Swedish health authorities advise is that if you are feeling unwell, you should stay at home and you should practice social distancing. And that's something that we should be very aware and very conscious of and all take very seriously. If you wear a face mask, we have no opinion, and we should certainly not view any differently if you wear a face mask, because we are very aware that there are different cultural contexts and also practices as to the likelihood of people wearing masks, face masks, either to protect themselves or to protect others. So we have no opinions on whether, regarding whether you are wearing a face mask or not. But currently, we do not. We have not issued a blanket recommendation. And again, this is following the advice that we received from the health authorities.
So why is LU accommodation unwilling to waive the remaining rental fees for students who had to return home due to the coronavirus?
I'm happy to say that today we have actually made the formal decision that we will be waiving 1 month of rent. So we have changed our current practice, which was that there was a 2-month notice period. We have shortened that now to 1 month. And this is in response to obviously the exceptional circumstances that we're facing right now.
And we could emphasize there that this is concerning the accommodation that is handled by Lund University, not by other housing providers in Lund.
Yes, exactly.
So if I decide to travel back home now, could my absence here in Lund affect my studies, even though we are doing online education?
Concrete questions to this matter should be directed to your program coordinators. But as far as I am informed, and as you know, we have many different programs and educational offerings at Lund. As far as I'm informed, as long as students follow the course instructions and the program instructions, and as long as you do what you are required to do in terms of assignments and exams and meet the preset requirements, this should not be an issue, i.e. even if you are at home or had decided to travel home, as long as you continue to follow the course and meet the requirements, this should not affect your studies or your ability to complete them.
Will the official presentation of my thesis be online?
Here again, we would advise you to contact your program coordinator and or consult our online website. As it might vary depending on the faculty or the department that you belong to. But what I have personally been very impressed with is the commitment and also the hard work that many of our teachers have been doing in the last couple weeks to make sure that they can really transition to distance education. And it is my understanding that in many cases this also covers the thesis completion and submission.
Will I be able to graduate in spring?
Our main ambition at Lund University, and I think this goes for all our departments and faculties, is that all students who manage to successfully complete their studies following the program instructions and requirements will be able to graduate this spring.
If I decide to travel back home now, will my degree certificate be sent to my home country?
Absolutely, that is something we generally do, and that is something we continue to do even in this situation.
If the libraries at Lund University will be closed, our search for information could be compromised because not all the books are online. How will the university resolve this problem? Can we be compensated in any way?
So currently, we do not have the intention to close the libraries. Our libraries are open. If we should arrive at a situation where we're following recommendations of the public authorities, we will see ourselves obliged to close libraries, then we would have to address this question at that moment. But to repeat, currently our libraries are not closed.
Will the studies be classroom-based or distance learning at the start of the autumn 2020 semester?
So this is a question which I fully understand that many of you incoming students have at this moment. And my answer to that is that this is something we cannot answer right now. As of today, we are in what we would call a distance learning modus. We have tried to transition everything to distance learning. Depending on what the situation looks like in the fall, we will have to decide in due time whether the courses and education will take place in distance learning modus or whether it will happen in the classroom and online. So I would encourage you and ask you to follow our website for updates. As I said, at this point, it is not possible for us to know, and we have not made it, therefore we have not made a definitive decision on that question.
In the case the outbreak does not get any better in the coming months, will starting dates for the autumn semester be deferred?
Here I would also refer to my previous answer. This is again something that we cannot determine at this moment. I think, as you all are aware, this is a highly fluid situation where things are changing very quickly all the time. So at this point, we do not have any information about a possible deferral of the starting dates of the autumn semester. But this could arise depending on how this epidemic develops. And again, I would encourage you and ask you to follow our homepage and pose any questions you might have to our international office. So I cannot give you a definitive answer on this right now.
If programs are taught via distance education once the autumn semester starts, will it be possible for students to come to Sweden and Lund later on during the academic year once the situation is under control again?
Our ambition is to welcome students physically to Lund as soon as it is possible and as we feel that it is responsible to do so. So our ambition is to go back to our on-campus education as soon as possible. We could also arrive at a situation where we might have to start our fall semester with remote learning or distance learning, but that we might then be able to transition to in-class learning during the semester or at the end of the semester. Again, this is something we have to assess as the situation develops.
And if I may add, if that would happen, of course, you can arrive later to Sweden and Lund.
Yes. I have one more question here. I don't know.
No, so we have a number of questions also that we received from newly admitted degree students that are planning, and incoming exchange students that are planning to come this fall. So we will also try to answer some of those questions.
Yes, thank you.
I was planning on coming to Lund this autumn for exchange studies. Will I still be able to come?
Do you want to answer that?
Yes. Right now we're planning for, but all exchanges will take place this fall. Some of our partner universities have already canceled exchange programs this fall, but Lund University is still planning to be open, and we hope that we can welcome all of you exchange students this fall.
I have recently been admitted to degree studies starting in autumn 2020. How will the coronavirus affect my chances of being able to start my studies?
I think a number of these questions we have answered. As I said, our hope is to be able to admit degree students starting in the fall. That's our firm intention. Again, we are not sure whether this will be perhaps initially in the form of distance learning or whether we will be able to start from the beginning with on-campus education. I should also add here that this question obviously is not only affected by the regulations in place in Sweden and our regulations, but as you know, other countries might have differing regulations regarding, for example, travel or the ability to leave their country. So some of these questions that you have and which are totally legitimate are decided by conditions and regulations in other countries. But as we mentioned before, it is our intention to start our studies as planned in the fall, with the caveat that we're not sure at this point whether it will handle by remote learning or on campus.
If I pay the tuition fee installment by 20th of May but cannot apply for a residence permit or cannot travel to Sweden in autumn, can I get a tuition fee refund?
So Lund University in this situation has a very generous refund policy, I would argue. And so our policy is that if you change your mind, if for some reason you are not able or willing to come to Lund University in the fall, you can always get a tuition fee refund. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. As soon as you ask for a refund before the program starts, you will be able to get a full refund of your tuition fee.
And I think, and I hope that this will also make it easier, because I understand that you want to make plans and know whether you will actually be coming here in the fall. But this policy of ours is at least making sure that you don't have to worry about the tuition. That's one less thing, hopefully, you have to worry about in terms of being able to get a refund, as long as you inform us before the start of the program that you do not intend to attend.
Due to the coronavirus, I want to defer my studies and start in autumn 2021 instead. Can I do so?
So currently, the coronavirus situation in itself is not yet in our here at Lund University a reason or a ground for deferral. Here, I would ask you to contact your respective program coordinators or faculties. If we are at a situation where it is not possible for you to come to Sweden and to Lund in August to start your studies, perhaps for reasons of travel restrictions or otherwise, or because you have fallen ill, there may be grounds for deferral. But right now, we don't have a general policy. So if you think that you have a reason or have an argument for deferring when you carry out your studies in Lund, then please contact the relevant people either at the international office or at your program coordinator.
Will there be an extended deadline for the payment of the tuition fee installment?
No, at this moment, the deadline is still May 20th. As I mentioned before, we have this policy where you are entitled and you can get a refund for tuition fees should you decide not to study here. And if we decide to change the deadline of May 20th for the payment of the tuition fee installment, we will put this immediately on our websites and also try to inform you otherwise. But currently, this is still the deadline.
I could only add there about if you have a specific individual case where you cannot pay the tuition fee by the deadline, please contact our tuition fee office and see if they can arrange something for you. But the deadline is also linked to the possibility of applying for your residence permit in Sweden. The migration board cannot process your application until you have paid the tuition fee installment.
Will there be any travel restrictions for students coming in autumn?
I cannot answer that question right now. What I can tell you is that the Swedish government and Swedish health authorities have been very clear that the travel ban will be in place as long as it is necessary, and as soon as it is possible to lift a travel ban. This is really an extreme precaution that is taken when and only if it is necessary. So we do not know what the situation looks like in the fall. And also, there could be travel restrictions in place in your home countries, which might not make it possible for you to come to Lund in the fall.
could also add that currently there is no travel ban for Europeans to travel to Sweden.
Right.
Will you still welcome international students at Lund University, even if they come from a country extremely affected by the coronavirus?
Currently, we have no intention of differentiating between students depending on which countries they come from. We hope to welcome all the students that we have admitted for this fall, regardless of which country they come from.
Is Lund University still planning on hosting Arrival Day and Orientation Weeks in autumn?
Yes, we are planning for an Arrival Day and an Orientation Week. Having said that, should we be in a situation where we cannot conduct these activities on campus, then we are looking at other alternative scenarios of organizing Arrival Day and Orientation, perhaps also in digital form. But absolutely, we are planning for Arrival Day and Orientation Weeks, but at this moment, we cannot say with certainty what the format will be. So we would here encourage you to follow our website where we will post information. So I think those were the questions that had come in ahead of time. Thank you for asking these questions. It's very important and helpful for us to get your questions, both from current students and incoming students, because it also helps us understand how we can both communicate our situation, but also our regulations, our response, and try to answer your questions and your concerns. So please keep these questions coming. You can ask them online, and I think you can also contact people at the university, program coordinators or other relevant contact points. And just again, ask you to please keep yourselves updated as to the evolving situation, and you can do that by following our homepages, and the links for those and also the contact information are up on the screen right now. So I think now we are opening up for any questions that you might have right now. I don't know if we've received any questions yet in the chat.
We're going to open up the chat now. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat function so that the panel can answer your questions. If you don't have questions at the moment, you're of course welcome to also ask questions via email or also read information on our website. So we have a question coming in here. Will we be able to defer our admission for 2021 in case we're not able to finish our current studies due to the coronavirus issues in our home countries?
So could you repeat it again?
Will we be able to defer our admission to 2021 in case we're not able to finish our current studies due to the coronavirus issues in our home countries? So if they're not able to complete their bachelor's degrees.
Yes, I understand.
Again, this is something we are looking into right now. As you all know, the situation is changing rapidly around the world. Where we are today, we did not know that we would be a month ago, and we're still 4 months before our studies start. And most of you have conditional acceptance, and you will have so far 4 months to start your studies. But it's a very good question, and we are looking into that currently and cannot give you a definite answer right now. But as soon as we know, we will post more information on our website and also contact those students that might be affected by that.
Yeah. We have a question from a current student here. As an international student paying fees, I'm wondering if there's any chance I will be eligible for a partial refund due to the limited availability of university services and facilities. For example, decreased library opening hours, decreased in-person access to student health services, cancel program-specific events like graduation activities.
Well, maybe I can start and then Richard can fill in. Obviously, this has been an extremely disruptive situation in all our lives, and I can imagine very much so for the current students here in Lund on campus, as it has been for, I think, students all over the world. So I would like to start with that.
I could also add that, concerning the student health that's provided by Lund University, they have opened up more opening slots for questions and so on, but there are still slots available, so we haven't decreased the service so far. But we haven't discussed this question yet, but that's something we will look into and come back to you later again.
Maybe just to complete this question, I think our total focus right now is on ensuring that we can provide high quality continued teaching to our students in these circumstances to ensure that they can complete their education and get their degree. That is, for us, a top priority in this situation, and that's what we've been working very hard to do. So our priority is to make sure that the students that are with us right now and on our campus or working or now studying from home, that they can continue to receive this education, or they can continue they continue their education and graduate. And that is something that we hope to be able to ensure, and we are aware, as I said, that there have been some significant disruptions in all our daily lives and also in our social lives, and also, as you said, that this has affected some of the services that we have been able to provide.
Another question: if I have traveled to my home country in the middle of my course, but I'm unable to return to Sweden now due to travel restrictions or not being able to extend my residence permit in my own country, what can I do next? Can I take a semester off and return to my course?
Again, this is a question that you have to take up with your local program coordinator and see what they can offer you. It's hard to give a very general answer to this question, as it might depend on the program that you are studying. So please contact your program coordinator.
Yeah, and I would add that again, right now, I think we're doing the utmost possible to make sure that you can complete your courses and your programs. So if you are not able to return, I would also urge you to contact your program coordinator, since most of the courses now and most of the teaching is done remotely. You know, there might be a possibility for you to complete your course without returning, if that is a problem.
What are the precautions that you have planned to implement against the coronavirus outbreak?
Okay, I can start and Richard can follow. As I said, we have a crisis management team that is meeting daily to address the most urgent issues regarding the safety of the students and the staff, and regarding also ensuring that we can continue with the education and with the teaching and related activities. We are now also continuously monitoring the situation to decide whether we will be able to welcome students physically to the campus in the fall, or whether we might have to work with alternative scenarios, as I said, that we might have to start our fall semester with online teaching or distance learning. We are constantly looking at restrictions in Sweden, travel restrictions, other safety precautions that are in place or that we need to put in place. So this is, I would say, a situation still that is evolving all the time. And we are following our national government's advice and recommendations. And since we are also a very international university, we're also trying to keep abreast of what's happening in other regions and other countries and how that might affect the students in our programs from these countries, and those who are hoping to perhaps study in these countries also in the fall.
A question from a newly admitted student, I believe. I have received the Lund University Global Scholarship. I know it's early, but it's important to know if the study and scholarship are linked in case of deferral. So the question rather here is, if I am able to defer my studies later on, will my scholarship also follow with that deferral?
Well, I think Richard has a more concrete answer, or at least, but I would just like to congratulate you on receiving that global scholarship, and and we're very much looking forward to welcoming you here in the fall.
The scholarship is linked to starting this fall, because if you would not be able to come, there might be another student who would like to get that scholarship, but then you're welcome, of course, to reapply next year to get the scholarship again. And if you receive the scholarship this year, I would say your chances of getting it again is pretty high. But we want to make sure that as many students as possible will get will be able to come this fall, and then a reserve person would get that scholarship instead for this fall.
Our graduation ceremony is cancelled.
I think most graduation ceremonies.
Yes, there's most programs and faculties are looking into alternative ways of doing graduation ceremonies. But again, it's about almost 1.5 months ahead, so we don't know exactly how the situation will look like then. But most likely, most graduation ceremonies will not be able to take place, unfortunately. For instance, in May every year we have the PhD ceremony, and that has been cancelled this year already.
A question from either a newly admitted student or a current student. If the 2020 intake semester continues in online classes only mode, will there be possibility for any reduction in fee for students who will not arrive on campus?
I think this is an issue that is being discussed at universities all over the world. I had a meeting just yesterday with colleagues from other universities within the U21 network, and this is something a lot of universities are discussing and looking into, but unfortunately we do not have an answer right now, but something we'll get back to.
And here again, I think our primary ambition is to make sure that you receive the best possible education, regardless of whether that will happen, online or on campus. And I think we were all entering, as Richard was saying, a situation in the fall which will be quite unique in many ways and something we haven't dealt with, and that will apply to all the universities around the world. So right now, this is not something we have decided upon.
So this is a question about housing, and we've already touched base on that, but let's do it again. There are students that left Lund at the beginning of March and are now locked in their home country since then. Is it fair that they have to pay the whole rent payment of April, even though these students have not used their accommodation during that month?
Well, like Sylvia mentioned earlier, the management took a decision this week that we will shorten the contract, so it's only 1 month rent that has to be paid. And unfortunately, then if you left in the beginning of March, that means that you would have to pay the April rent as well. Yeah.
If teaching is distance-based in autumn, how will lab sessions be conducted for certain master's programs? I am an incoming international student starting this autumn.
And that's also a very good question. We already now have certain elements of teaching or courses or labs that are extremely difficult or actually impossible to conduct remotely. So this is something that we're looking at. So there are some exceptions where some teaching does continue to take place on campus if we deem it safe and if we deem that it's not possible to do it online or remotely. And that's something also we're gonna look into. So there's a number of options. I mean, depending on how the situation develops with the epidemic, there could be a situation where there are certain programs that we will not be able to offer. That is the sort of a worst case scenario, because they would require the kind of physical presence that might not be allowed or might not be possible. But to me, that's a worst case scenario. So just to say that we know that there's certain classes, certain programs or certain courses that require on-campus education, and we're trying to look at how we can handle that.
So a student wanting to confirm, there are no restrictions on travels to Sweden for EU citizens. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But it might be not so easy to get to Sweden because Denmark has travel restrictions and there is not a lot of flights available, unfortunately, right now. But we're hoping that that will change soon.
And here we have a question. I think it's a little bit a cultural question as well, but also something we know a lot of students are asking about. Why isn't there more regular communication from the international office to update us on Swedish regulations in English, since it's hard to find English language news that are not behind a paywall? The website isn't comprehensive or easily digestible, and email updates would be more user-friendly to alert students on breaking news and new information. Many programs are not sending students updates, so we're all looking for the international office for assistance.
Thank you. I mean, I think Richard can answer this concretely, but I think we're in a situation where everybody wants as much information as possible all the time, and rightly so, because we're all very concerned. Richard can answer the details, but at a management level, we constantly have to sort of balance providing relevant information, not drowning people in information, and also providing up-to-date information. So I totally understand that there can be a frustration with the fact that you feel that you're not receiving enough information or not in time. Do you want to say?
We are, as far as I understand it, we're sending out a weekly email to international students at Lund University, but that's mostly related to what's happening at Lund University. If I understand the question right, it was about news about Corona in general.
The Swedish regulations.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should say that I think this is also something that where, again, Sweden also has realized that we need to strengthen not just Lund, but we need to strengthen the information about what's happening in Sweden and providing it in different languages. So that's something that, to my knowledge, is being looked at both nationally, but I'm sure that's something that can always be improved.
But again, on our webpage, all the relevant links are to the relevant authorities with daily updated information. So we please ask you to follow those links, because the news change all the time, and it's very hard for us to keep an updated information and
Yes.
from all different public authority websites.
In general, I would say my impression as somebody who is not from Sweden is that there is comparatively good information also provided in English, at least on most government agencies and also our university's homepage.
Can I be offered a scholarship even after the start of the course? This is in case other students reject their study place. If not, what would be the last stage that the scholarship can be transferred?
The scholarships can be transferred, as far as I understand it, until the start of the program. By then, we should have given out all the scholarships that are available. If there would be any scholarships left after the courses start, there might be a possibility, yes, but I don't think that there will be any scholarships available after the start of the course, but we never know.
No.
How can students prepare their room? I'm not really sure if they mean their current student corridor room or if they mean how to find accommodation once arriving at Lund University.
Perhaps to the latter question, can you say something?
I don't know if I understand the question really.
Maybe they mean how can they find accommodation? Could that be? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't think we're, maybe you can
I have to ask Sebastiano to please address your question in a different way to make it a bit more clear exactly what you're asking. If you're asking about your current room here at Lund University, or if you're asking about how to find accommodation as a new student.
If you're asking about how to find accommodation as a new student, all the information again is available on our website, and you can also contact our housing office. And I think the housing office application is opening soon with a deadline in late April, if I remember correctly.
We have an update here. So how can students prepare their room for departure if they are locked in their home country? These students are carrying their key, but they still have their luggage in their room in Lund. Is it possible to shorten their contract while keeping the student belonging in their room since no one will use the room after May.
That's something you have to contact. If it's LU accommodation, you have to contact the LU accommodation office to ask them. Or if you're staying in another housing provider, one of the nations or AF Bostäder and so on, you have to contact them specifically because different landlords might have different rules.
If the autumn semester will be started with distance learning and I'll be able to move to Sweden later on, I think it will be very difficult to find housing. Will the university provide any help in this? For example, we have students who have a housing guarantee at the moment, but what if they arrive 4 months after the start of the semester?
This is something that we're also looking into right now. There are so many questions that we don't have an answer to currently. There's still 4 months before the semester starts, and a lot of things can happen during this period. But that's why we think it's very important that you raise all these kind of issues and questions, because you always have more questions that we can think of. So therefore, please continue to ask these questions so we can try to find an answer to all of it.
Is there any specific contact or resource we can reach out to if we feel uncomfortable with the direction our professor or study supervisor is giving us, as they are internationally disregarding the university recommendations regarding corona safety? I don't feel comfortable confronting them directly as they are my senior authority.
Yes, of course. If you feel worried about somebody not following the rules, you should definitely contact the university. And at the end of this presentation, I think you can see the email to the student reception. You can always send an email to the student reception and ask them. If you feel worried, you're also able to contact our student health services, but have time slots available for you to ask questions about that. But please, if you see that somebody is breaking the rules, please do contact us at studentreception@lu.se.
And contact details can also be found on the website, of course.
Yes, of course.
I would like to ask about the flexibility on the residence permit submission, as I'm not sure about the internship placement I will get, whether in Sweden or abroad, due to the coronavirus. As internship course is mandatory to my program, is it possible to do an elective course?
That's a very good question, and I don't think we have an answer to that. But
it is a very good question. So if you haven't, please, I would contact your program coordinator with that specific question. If you feel like, you're not, if you don't feel like you're getting an answer for some reason, or that they are not sufficiently able to answer your question, given that that you're an international student compared to the Swedish students, then please contact the international office. So that's something I think that we're going to have to look into, maybe case by case, or also depending on what kind of program you're talking about and what the internship would be about.
Is there any plan for how housing will work if Sweden does institute a lockdown around June, or the time when graduating students should move out? If we were unable to move out at that time due to lockdown, forcing us to not be outside long enough to move, will we be able to stay in our rooms, or is there some plan for this?
I think in these crisis meetings, we're discussing all possible eventualities that we can foresee should we arrive at a situation as the one that you describe. I'm sure this is something we would have to figure out how to address. But right now, we're not there, and we don't see that as a
yes, no, and I know that a lot of students being worried because some US universities, for instance, they ask the students to leave the student housing immediately during a lockdown. This will not be the case at Lund University.
I think we've had this question too, but I'm a non-EU citizen currently living in Sweden or in Lund. My residence permit expires in June, so what if there's a lockdown going on in June and I can't travel back home?
Well, if anything related to migration issues, it's very important that you contact the migration board as soon as possible so they can look into your specific case. And if you have problems getting in contact with the migration board, please also contact our migration officer at the international office that can give you advice on how to proceed.
And where can one find contact details to the migration officer?
On our website again, her name is Louise Corrigan, and you will find the information and contact information on our website.
Yeah, so just to, absolutely, as Richard said, it's very important that you are in touch with the migration board if such a situation should arise. From our side, we're doing our best to try and inform and we're in constant dialogue with the migration board when such issues arise that could affect a lot of our, for example, non-EU students, to try and make them aware of such problems.
It's important also to point out that in Sweden, the universities are not taking part of a decision concerning migration issues like it is in some other countries.
We don't have any more questions at the moment, so perhaps we should just once again share the picture of the contact details where students can turn if they have any questions. I think that's important for them to see.
Right, so then I think we're wrapping up, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So with that, I just want to thank you for posing the questions. I think many of them are extremely relevant. Also, as we said, as we're always saying, this is something none of us, I think, have experienced to this degree, and so we're trying to handle the questions as they arise in the best possible manner. So please continue to ask your questions. I think this webinar, hopefully we're looking into whether we can make this available. But also there are other ways of asking questions, either to your program coordinators or to other people at the university or the international office. And as we've said many times, there are websites and links that provide you with information to the students for the fall of 2020. I would also encourage you to really try to make it a habit to follow what's happening on Lund University's homepage. So I think, and hopefully that will answer some of your questions. And again, very happy to still have many of you here, the international students, and I hope that this is still a meaningful experience for you. Above all, I hope we can still provide you with a good education, and that is really our topmost priority, so that you can graduate in time. And yeah, I wish you all the best of luck, and would just ask you to be responsible and follow the recommendations from the health authorities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.